Hello, cooking enthusiasts. We are going to jump right into today's video, which, as you can tell, is all about Alfredo. What you see now is us placing pieces of 24-month Parmigiano Reggiano into a food processor to begin breaking it up. There's also some mystery ingredients that I will get back to later. The important thing to realize is that a traditional fettuccine alfredo is not a sauce that you prepare separately and then combine with the pasta. It is a dish that is built up around the cooked pasta, similar to cacio e pepe or carbonara. Another important factor is that a traditional Alfredo has pretty much just two ingredients besides the pasta, and that is the Parmigiano cheese and butter. However, that style of emulsified pan sauce pastas is kind of notoriously tricky to master, which is why a lot of people turn to a basically Americanized bechamel sauce based Alfredo, which to me can be delicious, but is a completely different dish. So the intention of this recipe is to make it with essentially the traditional ingredients, but with a slightly altered technique. So after the Parmesan cheese is broken up, we are incorporating cold butter. Now, my butter was almost totally frozen. You probably don't need it that cold. As you'll see, we do struggle to really incorporate everything. But the idea is you are breaking the cheese into fairly small particles and then suspending those particles inside the butter. And lastly, we are blending in a little bit of cold water into the butter, which will make it a little gentler to melt. I will be linking to the recipe I made in the video description, and it's all based on ratios. The really critical part is that ratio of the Parmigiano cheese and the butter, which is based on the original Alfredo recipe, because if you go to the great YouTube channel Italia Squisita, they have a video at the restaurant where fettuccine alfredo was sort of invented or at least canonized, and they give measurements for the ratio of butter and cheese. Now, up until this point, all of the using the food processor to break down the cheese, to incorporate it with the butter and that little bit of water, I think could be considered essentially purely traditional, but just a slightly different technique. But going back to the beginning, those few mystery ingredients that I added to the cheese. Those are a combination of very optional, modernist style ingredients, and they serve different functions. The still optional, but most recommended, is a very small amount of sodium citrate, which is an emulsifier that works particularly well with dairy proteins, and that is sort of just an insurance policy for your emulsified sauce. The other two ingredients I added were just to slightly tweak the flavor, and that is lactose, which is, of course, the sugar derived from milk. And my thinking was if you bought really good butter, it might taste slightly sweeter. So that's where that idea came from. And the other was the savory compounds inosinate and guanylate, which again are supposed to enhance the naturally occurring MSG within the Parmesan. Again, interesting, but very, very optional. Still, I do believe that this technique would be very helpful even without those modernist ingredients, although again, I do recommend the citrate. Still, the idea is you can create this Alfredo paste that you can also refrigerate and freeze. And once you have it, it very easily melts and forms the Alfredo sauce as soon as it hits hot water and hot pasta. If you are working with homemade or store-bought fresh egg pasta, I like to use 60 grams of this paste for a 100-gram pasta portion. With dried pasta that might expand a bit more, you might prefer to use 70 or 75 grams of paste per 100 grams of dry pasta. Hopefully, in the footage, you can see how easy it is to turn this paste into a quick emulsified sauce using just a little bit of residual heat and pasta water. The other great thing is you can have this paste in the freezer, and in addition to very convenient Alfredo, you can also add smaller amounts to other dishes and build other interesting sauces. You could use it as a foundation to make pasta al limone. You could add a small amount to a tomato sauce to make it more of a rosé slash vodka sauce. I used some to make San Francisco garlic noodles that were absolutely delicious. And I even still think a lot of very traditional Italian cooks and chefs could appreciate this technique of making the Alfredo paste. It's very much similar to the Italian chef Luciano Monacelio, who made a slightly modernized version of cacio e pepe using traditional ingredients, but a hydrated starch slurry to make the emulsion more stable. In a same way, a lot of the basic techniques in this recipe just pre-incorporate the ingredients and make that emulsion easier to happen. And I hope you do try it because many people haven't tasted a really traditional Alfredo before. If you have any questions about this recipe, please let me know in the comments. And please feel free to share and like this recipe. I am pretty proud of it, so I would love it to get some extra attention. Maybe we can even get Itasquisita and Chef Luciano to react to it. But anyways, thank you for watching.